Welcome back, Defenders. Happy Thanksgiving to all my American friends. But to everyone else in the world, this is just another Thursday, and sadly the war in Ukraine continues. Ukraine to turn tables in first symmetric winter, as its drones overwhelm Russian air defenses. Ukraine turns Russia's tactics against Moscow. This is the fifth winter of this war. 2022, 23, 24, 25, and now 2026. But this is the first winter of this war that Ukraine can do to Russia, what Russia has been doing to Ukraine for 4 years, simultaneously launching dozens, if not hundreds of drones and missiles into Russian territory. Ukraine every day is striking oil refineries, thermal power plants, electrical infrastructure, anything of value. I want to remind everyone that last week, Ukraine destroyed a thermal power plant in the Moscow Oblast. I don't think the Russians could have predicted this when they launched their full-scale invasion 4 years ago. This war is not going well for Russia. Ignore the propaganda. What did Ukraine hit? Magyar's birds hit key Russian missile electronics plant 1,000 kilometers inside Russia. The Veneer Progress plant makes radio electronic equipment, including Kometa antennas for Russia's Guran drones and satellite receivers for Kalibr and Iskander missiles. This is where this factory is located, west of Kazan, more than 1,000 kilometers inside Russia. And there is a video showing an explosion at the factory. This was geolocated, and this looks like a pretty big fireball. Now, the problem with me sharing these clips is we don't really know what is the extent of the damage inside, because it's probably a crime for any Russian to take a video and then post it online. But we do have a good example from this week. I mentioned in my video 2 days ago these 2 aircraft that were destroyed. This is Taganrog, west of Rostov-on-Don. But this is some kind of aircraft assembly factory, and from the satellite images, how bad is the damage? We don't really know. But we actually got a video. Somebody in Taganrog walking down the street, they shouldn't have done this, this is very dangerous to do. They filmed video with their phone showing the damage to the street. So this is a building across the street that took heavy damage. Or maybe that's just what Russia normally looks like, I'm not sure. But the cameraman is going to turn the camera around, and that's the assembly factory. This is what a Ukrainian drone or missile did to this factory in Taganrog. This isn't an easy fix. This isn't just a hole in the roof, and then this factory will be operational again within 24 hours. Whenever the Russians say they're going to fix something within 24 hours, they're lying. So what is the payload of these FP1, 2, and Flamingo drones? These are Firepoint drones. The payload for an FP1 Ukrainian drone is 60 kilograms. That's over 120 pounds. The FP2's is 100 kilograms, about 220 pounds. And the Flamingos, which we've not seen very many yet, 1,000 kilograms. So yes, when these Ukrainian drones strike factories, these factories are going offline. It's going to take extensive repairs to fix them. What else did Ukraine hit? And this is a military barracks in Chechnya. This is the Akhmat North Group in Grozny. And I've not really seen or heard much from the Chechens lately, but for some reason Ukraine wanted to target this barracks, so maybe military command was there. And I've not mentioned Ramzan Kadyrov maybe this entire year. This guy has basically disappeared. He has health complications. The speculation is he has renal failure. His kidneys no longer work. Maybe he's not compatible for a transplant, but the guy is only 8 years older than me, and he's clearly dying. This is UFC champion John Jones, and for some reason he wanted to visit Chechnya, and then Kadyrov met with him. I'll play this video. You can see Kadyrov has lost a lot of weight, and he's not very alert, he's not very mobile. He's clearly failing in health.
This is dirty fighting now.
No, you gotta do it. You gotta add that. It's legal.
My shoulder.
Like, tell them this is MMA, not boxing.
MMA, you go boxing.
All the pictures and videos of Kadyrov this year, he's barely audible. He struggles to move. He is failing in health, and I don't think he's going to be alive much longer. Let's talk about the economics. More than half of Russia's regions are running budget deficits. This is the financial collapse moving in slow motion. It's very slow for a very long time, and then it hits all at once panic sets in. But more than half of Russia's regions ran budget deficits in the first 9 months of this year. The 56 regions' combined deficit, excluding municipalities, reached 169 billion rubles, or over $2 billion US. The shortfall stems from a 14% year-on-year rise in spending. This is mostly sign-up bonuses and death bonuses, but only a 6.9% increase in revenue. Everywhere is going bankrupt. I don't know how it works in Russia, but in the United States, states can't issue debt. Only the federal government can. So for these regions in Russia, if they're all operating at a loss, and they can't issue their own debt to cover the deficit, then Moscow, the Kremlin, has to bail them out, which is what they're asking for. But this is happening with every sector, not just the oblasts, not just the cities. It's every company. Russia weighs how to prop up Russian railways, which is $51 billion in debt, according to Reuters. State-owned Russian railways, which employ 700,000 people, have suffered a fall in revenues amid a sharp slowdown in Russia's war economy, while debt costs have soared, driven by the highest interest rates in 2 decades. According to 2 people who spoke on the condition of anonymity, due to the sensitivity of the matter, Moscow has been discussing ways for helping the railways deal with its debt, mostly owned by state banks. Russia's railroad monopoly is bankrupt. They're $50 billion in debt. You can't come back from this by just raising your freight cost rates by a little bit. What do you think is going to happen when 700,000 Russian employees for the railroad network stop getting their paycheck? This is coming. Coal mines in occupied Luhansk face risk of closure without $505 million injection. This is every industry. The company asked the government for 40 billion rubles in National Wealth Fund financing at a preferential 3% annual rate during the October meeting. They're begging the Kremlin for a bailout. But how can the government simultaneously bail out everything and everyone? Russian corporate losses surge in 2025 as more firms slip into the red. Russian companies have reported a sharp rise in losses so far this year, with total negative results jumping nearly 25% year on year. These are going to be the headlines every month. We measure budgets and the fiscal sector in year over year. And every month we get new data, and we have year over year comparisons. So every month when I make these videos talking about the headlines, it just gets worse and worse and worse. Russia can't fix this situation unless they stop the war, but Putin refuses to stop. Russian homebuyers struggle as rising prices outpace income growth. Russian homebuyers are finding it increasingly difficult to save for a mortgage down payment as housing costs rise faster than wages. Only 8.3% of working Russians, roughly 1 in 12, can save the required 20% down payment. We don't hear from it because it's a crime in Russia to complain about your life. They don't have free speech. You cannot be critical of Putin or the government. You will be sent to jail or sent to Ukraine to die. But this is happening. Let's now talk about what Russia is doing to Ukraine, and it's more terrorism, missile and drone attacks. Here is Ukraine's Prime Minister. A difficult night for Kyiv as the Russians continue their terror, once again launching hundreds of drones and dozens of missiles of various types against our civilian population. As rescue efforts continue, 6 people are already dead and 13 are injured. My condolences to the families of the victims. What did Russia blow up last night? Built during war, shattered overnight, distribution center hit hard by Russian strike. This is the Novus Logistics Center for a supermarket chain. A supermarket chain distribution center. Russia thinks they're going to win this war by depriving Ukraine of fresh fruits and vegetables. We have to find a way to make it stop. Keep up the pressure on everyone and everything until Russia is defeated. Concerning the soldiers on the front lines, they're still holding. Russia doesn't need to storm Mirnorod. Just wait for a sunny day. Fog, counterattacks, and a battle for a nearby village are all that's keeping open the sole road into Mirnorod for Ukrainian troops. We've been getting these panicked headlines that Pokrovsk is surrounded. Mirnorod is surrounded for like 3 or 4 months. The Russians were just outside the city 11 months ago. But Ukraine is trading a little bit of land for a little bit more time. And at the moment, I view the entire city of Pokrovsk as a gray zone. The Russians don't really control it. Ukrainians have been spotted in the train station region. They're doing counterattacks. Are they doing some kind of coordinated withdrawal? And they don't really seem to want to give up this town of Mirnorod. There's only one road that goes in and out, and the Russians are trying to control it with artillery and FPV drones. And what Ukraine does is they just wait for it to rain or they wait for fog to come in. They can then bring in supplies, rotate troops, do whatever they need to do. But the Russians do this as well. Both sides understand how important the weather is. When fog rolls across eastern Ukraine, Russia gains a tactical advantage. Ukrainian drone defenses are weakened, and Russian infiltration groups appear kilometers behind the front lines. In this fog, the Russians don't move the way textbooks say they should, a Ukrainian mortar commander told me. They cross open fields and suddenly appear 8 to 10 kilometers deep in our rear. There's constant contact with mortar teams, drone pilots, and everyone. Ukraine's defense relies on drones to compensate for manpower shortages. One Ukrainian expert said, each kilometer of the front is only being guarded by 4 to 7 infantrymen. But when fog, rain, or snow grounds the drones, that skeletal defense becomes dangerously exposed. Yes, Ukraine has a manpower shortage on the front lines, but at the same time, this is reducing casualties. They're losing lands, they're losing villages, but by having fewer troops on the front lines, they're also losing fewer soldiers to artillery and FPV drones. The weather creates a tactical paradox. Both sides can move more freely when drones can't fly, but Russia, with its numerical superiority, benefits more. Whenever the weather is bad, both sides are moving, but there are just more Russian soldiers on the contact line trying to advance. This is when they make progress. But you have to zoom out and think big picture. I understand if you pay attention to this war day to day, and you zoom in on the map far enough, it looks like the Russians are making significant gains. But they're really not. You have to think on the timescale of weeks, months, and years. And the Russians are barely moving, and they struggle to take mid-sized towns. It's not normal to take 50,000 casualties to take a city with a pre-war population of 50,000. Russia thinks that's to their advantage, but that is insane, and it's not going to work when they get to cities like Zaporizhia, which has a population of 700,000 people. So Ukraine is just trading a little bit of land for a little bit more time, hoping the political situation changes in their favor. And this is the good news. Trump walks back Ukraine deadline, says the 28-point peace plan was just a map. Just a map. Trump last week tried to force this on Ukraine. He said it on Friday. Zelensky has to learn to love this deal, or else. But obviously everyone else in the world aside from Russia hated this plan, and Trump is already tacoed out. So that's the good news. The United States is not going to cut off weapons deliveries. They're not going to cut off intelligence sharing. As soon as this plan was released to the public, the pressure became too much and Donald Trump backed down. Made me sick to my stomach. Lawmakers launched bipartisan push to stop Ukraine peace deal they call a Munich-style agreement. Where did this whole Russian peace deal come from? And it came from Witkoff, but also Jared Kushner and J.D. Vance. Rubio and Vance dismiss NBC report claiming Army Secretary warned Ukraine of imminent defeat. This is another lie from my government. This is a new character. We should probably learn his name. This is the Secretary of the Army, and his name is Dan Driscoll. And the world is now learning more about this guy, and he's a toad. Apparently, he's a military buddy of J.D. Vance. He's known him for a while, which means he really works for Elon Musk and Peter Thiel. Elon Musk and Peter Thiel want Russia to win this war. J.D. Vance owes his entire career. He owes the vice presidency, all of his wealth and money to Elon Musk and Peter Thiel. So J.D. Vance's allegiance, loyalties, is really more towards these South African billionaires than even to Donald Trump. So when I learned that, I don't believe anything Dan Driscoll says. He showed up in Kyiv to meet with the Prime Minister and President Zelensky, and he wanted to talk tough. He said, "You need to capitulate, accept this 28-point peace plan, otherwise the United States is going to abandon you." This is the marching orders that Dan Driscoll got from J.D. Vance. And I guess Trump was okay with it, but Trump's not really a plans kind of guy. He just wants to react to things. In general, Trump will sign any deal that stops the war. Ukraine's future is secondary. Trump doesn't care how the war ends. He doesn't care how many people died. He doesn't care who gets what. He just wants the fighting to stop so he can take credit for it. He wants to win that Nobel Peace Prize. In addition, he views this as a distraction. He hates thinking about it and talking about it every day. If you watch this channel, you know there's only one way to make this war end, and Donald Trump doesn't want to put pressure on the Russians. But Zelensky views this as an opportunity. The Russians are peddling the narrative around the world that Ukraine allegedly cannot defend itself. They are saying that the Ukrainian warriors cannot defend themselves. The daily combat results of the Ukrainian army, our special forces and deep strikes, these are all proof that Ukraine can defend its interests. The Russian narrative is that Ukraine is collapsing. They're going to lose all this territory anyways. Might as well give it to Russia now. But that simply isn't true. That's not the reality. And by pushing this bogus Russian peace deal, this put Ukraine on the front page. Over the last 5 days, everyone in America has been talking about these scandals. Whereas the previous couple weeks, the previous couple months, coverage of the Ukraine war in the United States was pretty light. So I think this is actually backfiring on the Russians, and Zelensky sees this as an opportunity. He gets to come back to the United States to talk with Trump again. He's going to go to the Fox News studios in Washington, D.C. and get on cable news again. He's going to talk to and meet with whoever he can to advocate for his country. And he wouldn't have been invited if this bogus Russian peace plan hadn't been proposed. So this was an opportunity. But there's another scandal. Trump envoy Witkoff coached Putin's aide on peace plan for Ukraine without inviting Kyiv to the talks. This is according to leak recordings. Yuri, here's what I would do. Witkoff recorded coaching Kremlin on peace plan. The U.S. president's envoy to Ukraine told Kremlin officials how to stroke Trump's ego in order to get a sweetheart deal for the Russians. Steve Witkoff is so stupid. I say this in almost every video. He was speaking to the Russians on an unsecure line. This was through like WhatsApp or something. But this was recorded somewhere by someone, and then released to the press. So I can read for you the transcript, but if you haven't seen it yet, this is a conversation between Steve Witkoff and Putin's top foreign aide, Yuri Ushakov. So SW stands for Steve Witkoff. Yuri, here's what I would do, my recommendation. Yes, please. I would make the call and just reiterate that you congratulate the president on this achievement, that you supported it, that you respect that he is a man of peace, and you're really glad to have seen it happen. So I would say that. I think it's going to be a really good call. Because let me tell you what I told the president. I told the president that the Russian Federation has always wanted a peace deal. That's my belief. I told the president I believe that. And I believe the issue is that we have two nations that are having a hard time coming to a compromise. And when we do, we're going to have a peace deal. I'm even thinking that maybe we'll set out like a 20-point peace proposal like we did with Gaza. We put a 20-point Trump plan together that was 20 points for peace, and I'm thinking maybe we do it the same with you. My point is, Yuri then jumps in. Okay, my friend, I think that very point our leaders could discuss. Hey, Steve, I agree with you that he will congratulate. He will say that Mr. Trump is a real peace man and so, that he will say. Maybe he says to President Trump, you know, Steve and Yuri discussed a very similar 20-point plan to peace, and that could be something that we think might move the needle a little bit. We're open to these sort of things, to explore what it's going to take to get a peace deal done. Now, me to you, I know what it's going to take to get the peace deal done. Donetsk, and maybe a land swap somewhere. But I'm saying instead of talking like that, let's talk more hopefully, because I think we're going to get a deal here. And I think, Yuri, the president will give me a lot of space and discretion to get the deal. I see. Yuri doesn't really seem like the one proposing any ideas. This is all Steve Witkoff initiating everything. Yuri is just taking it in. So if we can create the opportunity that after this, I talked to Yuri and we had a conversation, I think that could lead to big stuff. Okay, sounds good. And here's one more thing. Zelensky is coming to the White House on Friday. I know. Ha ha ha. I will go to that meeting because they want me there. But I think if possible, we have the call with your boss before that Friday meeting. Before, yeah? Correct. Okay, I got your advice. So I discuss that with my boss and then come back to you, okay? Okay, Yuri, I'll speak to you soon. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye. I'm surprised these two men didn't end this phone conversation with I love you. But this is what happened last month. Steve Witkoff orchestrated the phone call that sabotaged Zelensky's White House visit when tomahawks for Ukraine were on the table. A month ago, Donald Trump was threatening to give tomahawks to Ukraine, and Zelensky was coming to the White House on a Friday for a big announcement, and Steve Witkoff collaborated with the Russians to come up with some kind of fake peace proposal when the Russians aren't initiating any of this. The Russians weren't saying in these conversations, yeah, we want a peace deal. It's all coming from Steve Witkoff. Steve Witkoff then told Trump this. I'm talking to the Russians on the phone. They want peace. We have a peace deal. Don't give tomahawks to Ukraine because that will sabotage the peace deal. And then Zelensky kind of got the cold shoulder at that Friday meeting. And there were rumors that Trump yelled at Zelensky saying you have to give up Donetsk for there to be a peace deal. Because that's what Witkoff told Trump. What's happening with Witkoff is simple. A U.S. government official with the ear of the president has been advising a geopolitical rival on how to undermine the United States, NATO, and Ukraine. He is advising Russia on how to crack the transatlantic alliance. This is treason. It's not Steve Witkoff's job to give advice to the Russians how to trick or convince Trump to not support Ukraine. but that's what he's doing. Someone leaks, someone listens in. Putin's top aide, Ushakov, does not deny the leaked calls. So initially, Dmitry Karel said this was a fake story, and once again, the Russians are so stupid, they admitted on camera that the conversation was real, so you can't deny that this is fake. This genius held a highly classified discussion with Putin's key foreign policy advisor on an unencrypted GSM line. Can't believe after 10 years of us basing our most damning investigations on cell phone data that these idiots are still doing it. Here's to never learning. These people are so corrupt, and they're so stupid. They just keep falling for this every time. They keep making amateur mistakes because they're all amateurs. 2 questions. Does Steve Witkoff still have a job? And if so, why? Is there going to be any accountability for this? And I can phrase this in a different way because I know people have their biases against Ukraine for whatever reason. But Steve Witkoff is the special peace envoy to the Middle East. Did Steve Witkoff ever give advice to and coach Hamas how to manipulate the president with the objective of forcing a bad peace deal on Israel? Would Republicans be okay with him doing that? Because that's what he's doing for the Russians. Of course, Trump was asked about this conversation with Witkoff, and of course, Trump defended Witkoff. This is what he was asked. Do you remember this audio that Bloomberg has of Witkoff coaching the Russians on how to appeal to you? Well, I haven't heard it, but that's a standard thing. He's got to sell this to Ukraine. He's got to sell Ukraine to Russia. That's what a deal maker does. No, that's what a traitor to America does. Witkoff's credibility absolutely shot, ex-ambassador says, but urges Ukraine to stay in the talks. Here are thoughts from Ambassador McFowle. Before Witkoff meets with Putin again, I wish he'd stop in Kyiv and meet some mothers who lost their sons and daughters fighting against Putin's invading army on the front line, or talk with some kids who lost their grandmas in Putin's drone attacks, or meet some warriors without limbs, or chat with NGO leaders documenting kidnapping and other atrocities in places occupied by Putin's army, or call en route to Moscow the daughters of Nemtsov and Navalny to ask them what kind of a guy Putin is. Diplomats must engage with dictators to advance American national interests, but they don't need to check their values at the door. This is Steve Witkoff on the Tucker Carlson podcast saying, he was asked, what do you think of Putin? I liked him. I thought he was straight up with me. I don't regard him as a bad guy. I'm not going to play the clip, I'll link it down below, but Steve Witkoff loves Russia. He loves Putin. He's trying to help them against America's best interests. Where's the outrage from Congress? And of course, every Democrat hates this situation. And there are a couple Republicans with courage remaining. This is Republican Don Bacon. I don't trust any leader or negotiator who doesn't know that Putin is a war criminal, murdered his rivals, is a dictator, and initiated this war with Ukraine. Neither should you. For those who oppose the Russian invasion and want to see Ukraine prevail as a sovereign and democratic country, it is clear that Witkoff fully favors the Russians. He cannot be trusted to lead these negotiations. Would a Russian paid agent do less than he? He should be fired. Here's Republican Brian Fitzpatrick. This is a major problem, and one of the many reasons why these ridiculous sideshows and secret meetings need to stop. Allow Secretary of State Marco Rubio to do his job in a fair and objective manner. I didn't know who Steve Witkoff was a year ago. He just showed up out of nowhere, and Donald Trump seems to put him in charge of America's shadow foreign policy. People are digging up dirt on this guy and looking into his history, but he's of Jewish and Russian ancestry. And I can link this thread down below, but he's been involved with doing business with the Russians since the 90s. When the Soviet Union collapsed, there were a lot of Russian immigrants to the United States and a lot of Russian money flowing into New York City. This benefited real estate developers like Donald Trump and Steve Witkoff, who have known each other for decades. So the connections are there, and I'm not going to spend 10 minutes reading this thread about how compromised and entangled Steve Witkoff is with Russian money, but I can summarize it here. Steve Witkoff's son runs Trump's crypto fund to release the list of all investors, including anyone connected to the Kremlin. Donald Trump and his entire family, they're just a criminal organization trying to enrich themselves as fast as possible. Now they're making billions off the Saudis, the Emiratis, the Israelis. You would think that would be enough money for the Trump family, where they could have some loyalty to America. But because the Russians also have money, and they have no problem spending billions in bribes through cryptocurrencies to enrich the Trump family, this is what Witkoff wants. This is what Trump and his stupid kids want. To make billions from Russian cash, selling out Ukraine, selling out NATO, selling out Europe. For anyone out there still dumb enough to be supporting Donald Trump, this is the official Trump cryptocurrency coin, launched on January 19th, the day before his inauguration. Lots of hype, fight, 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 MAGA, 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 America first. The price shot up to, $46 per Trump coin, and the current price of Trump coin is $6.23. So if you're a Trump supporter dumb enough to believe in Donald Trump, you put your money in, and the Trump family took their money out. It's just a transfer. Anytime someone wants to bribe Donald Trump, all they have to do is put billions into his stupid crypto coin, and then the Trump family sells their crypto coin because they originally controlled 80% of the float. It's all a scam, and they do it out in the open. This is Eric Trump pumping something related to crypto, but he wants to show how much the Trump family has invested in crypto mining servers, so I'm going to play this clip for you.
Hey friends, Eric Trump. Welcome to American Bitcoin. It's a little sneak peek of our facility in Texas using American energy to mine Bitcoin right here on American soil. We could not be more proud of this facility. 35,000 of these servers right here, all liquid cooled, securing the network, mining Bitcoin. Every single day we mine about 2% of the world's Bitcoin supply, and we safeguard it every single day. So when people say that cryptocurrency is intangible, it's not. It's very tangible. And this right here, guys, is living proof. Take a look at the company. Come join us. We could not be more excited about our growth. I truly believe that we're building one of the great crypto companies anywhere on Earth.
If you're American and you're upset that your energy bills are going up, this is why. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings if they're invested in crypto, but crypto serves no necessary purpose. Yes, there is utility for it if you want to use a decentralized currency. That's great. But the overwhelming majority of people who buy Bitcoin use it as an investment. They just want the price to go up, so someday they can sell it for a higher price. That's great. But cryptocurrency, all of them, they have no intrinsic value. They're different than stocks, bonds, gold, real estate. It only goes up if more people participate. And if you can only make money if more people join your scheme, then by definition, that's a Ponzi scheme. And the Trump organization is all in on cryptocurrencies of various types and crypto investments, and they push it to their supporters. Their supporters put the money in, the price goes up, the Trump family then cashes out and buys real assets with it. It's all a scam. The entire Trump presidency is a Ponzi scheme. The Trump family and team are allied with Russia against Ukraine and Europe for personal profits, and there are no U.S. national interests involved. Trump and his family, they don't care about democracy or the geopolitical position of the first island chain in Taiwan. They only care about money. Who is giving them money? We all see writings on the wall that Trump's star is fading. The current Republican infighting, whether it is about domestic or foreign policy, is just the beginning. The Epstein scandal will further incapacitate the White House and diminish Trump. Staunch allies like Marjorie Taylor Greene have already abandoned ship. The rift between Rubio and Vance will become more and more obvious. Everyone who wants to take advantage of Trump has to do this now. This is what we are seeing. MAGA is failing. If you had asked me a year ago whether or not Marjorie Taylor Greene would be leaving the party and resigning from Congress and become one of the biggest critics of Trump, I would have said to get your head checked. The good news is MAGA is collapsing. The bad news is this doesn't really help Ukraine. We need the United States to increase support somehow. And as an American, to my non-American friends, I cannot apologize enough that so many of my fellow Americans were dumb enough to fall for this grift. But it is blowing up in their face. It is collapsing, and you can take some satisfaction from that. So the Ukrainians are making the best of the situation, and they are engaging with Marco Rubio, and Marco Rubio is making changes to that 28-point plan. Zelensky is saying that the document has been revised and they're getting good feedback from Marco Rubio's team. So here are some of the changes. Ukraine agrees to cap its army at 800,000 in a revised U.S. peace plan. This isn't a big deal because the current Ukrainian military is like 900,000, and they couldn't pay all these soldiers and maintain this while also trying to rebuild their country. So 800,000 is good enough for Ukraine, but it's also something that the Russians will never agree to. So I think Zelensky is being smart, and he's trying to adjust the plan to look reasonable, but then have the Russians reject it, so it's Russia's fault the peace talks failed. Additionally, full amnesty has been dropped from the peace plan. Ukraine's not going to forget about their 170,000 open cases of war crimes. Some Russians will have to be held accountable, so this was also taken out of Witkoff's peace plan, and this is another reason why Russia will never agree to it. Kremlin rejects any concessions under U.S. peace plan, says the war's end is not close. Ready if Kyiv fights to the last Ukrainian, Putin rules out any deal with Kyiv and blames its illegitimate leadership. So Putin yesterday did say, we're not stopping the war. There is no peace plan. Donald Trump is just wasting everyone's time again. There is a clip from the Deputy Foreign Minister of Russia, but I'm not going to read it. Basically, he says he appreciates Donald Trump's efforts to engage in peace talks, but the Russians are not looking to negotiate. They're not looking to compromise. They're going to continue killing people until they achieve all of their objectives. There is no deal. There is no land swap. Donald Trump keeps trying to pretend like this is a business deal, a negotiation, when the Russians are not negotiating. They've not been negotiating for 4 years. They have been stating their maximum demands, and even behind closed doors, they have never compromised on them. There is no deal to be had. This is what they say on Kremlin State TV. This is Mardan yesterday. There's only one peace formula for Ukraine, the liquidation of Ukraine as a state. This is a genocide. At this point, Russia's really pissed off, and they want to erase the Ukrainian identity from this earth. And they want the world to forget Ukraine ever existed, because they stood up and they told the Russians no. It's Thanksgiving, I gotta get going, guys, but let me just share this clip with you. This is volunteers handing out food to hungry people close to the front lines, and this is who I'm thinking of this Thanksgiving.
Спасибо большое. Дякую. Классно, Вен.
Сьогодні наша команда в Краматорську, локація кондиціонер з допомогою для мешканців Краматорська. Дуже дякую всім, хто долучається до допомоги людям Донбасу. Все заради народу України.
Thank you to everyone who continues to support Ukraine. Thank you to everyone who continues to support this channel. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.